Hello and welcome back to another edition of Around the Association. I'm your host, Charles Fallon, back in here with another episode. And boy, do we have a lot to discuss this week. Right, it took nearly 100 starts for him to finally reach victory lane in the sport, but the hottest name in the open market finally punches his ticket to victory lane. We also got to talk championship and both the Craftsman and the Cup Series, as it always seems to around this time of year. This is when it gets, but it all fell apart just like that. So we'll talk all about it for them, especially the four-time champion, Diego Orkedi. Also got to talk a little bit more about Snoots Enterprises. They just revealed their 2027 lineup this morning and their successor to Lucas Sambér, that will be Matt Chamberlain. So Chamberlain will join Tony Doval II, Gunnar Thorson, and Caden Dunham competing for Rookie of the Year next year. And if you thought the Rookie of the Year race was good already, oh boy, it just got even better. And then we're going to be previewing the first split weekend of the campaign. The Craftsman Series heads back to the East Coast, down to Orlando for a return trip to Orlando Motor Speedway. The Cup Series wraps up its West Coast swing in San Diego. But first, before we get into it, we got to shout out the sport's premier partner, Circle B Diecast/Plan B Sales. You already know, use coupon code ASCA for reduced shipping on any orders $30 or more inside the U.S. You want to cop a Lucas Sambér replica diecast, you can do so over there. And then also the ASCA's merch shop. Fortunately, we don't have any Lucas Sambér merch, but hey, we do have Graham Darty, we do have Carson Schmidt, we do have Diego Orkedi merch in case you are a depressed Orkedi Bros Racing fan needing a pick-me-up. You want to rep your guys that finally had some pace this week. Head on over to the ASCA's merch shop and use coupon code SEASON12 for 30% off at checkout. So let's get into it. So Lucas Sambér is finally an ASCA winner in Denver. And flashback to last week, it seemed like the same song and dance for this A team. Mr. Friday, as they call him, qualified inside the top 5 again. Led the most laps again. Well, actually, for the first time, I think this season, he led the most laps. He did lead 80 laps at the Stone Yard, but from pole position, but that was not the most laps led. But this time he didn't have, Jared Ayers to blame for his failures. And his failure to capitalize on victory was just a faulty adjustment by crew chief Eric Murray. Learning experience. They got outsmarted, basically. Neil Anderson won this race for Colin Ward. I think you can say that. Ward ended up getting by with 30 laps to go, drove off, got the checker flag in Utah. So we transitioned to Denver. A lot of the talk was about Ford and Toyota and their bounce back. It seemed like they had really scrapped anything they were trying in Salt Lake because obviously it didn't work. And just throwing darts at the wall, building these setups from scratch and hoping that one of them would stick. And boy, oh boy, did they ever. But hey, for Orkedi Bros Racing, they could not nail the reliability. And we're going to, of course, talk about that more later on. And, for Micro Racing, they were fast as well. Braden Bennett, Randall Woods, both inside the top 5, but not fast enough to conquer Lucas Sambér on this day. And it really just kind of came down to that final restart. With the round, I believe, 50 or so laps to go, something like that. Sambér, of course, inherited the lead after Diego Orkedi blew up. His pit crew got him out first. And Eric Murray basically told his driver, hey, we believe in you. We didn't make any adjustments. We didn't touch the car. Just go out and win this race. We're going to let you handle it. And despite the pressure from the defending champion, Todd Kidd, despite the pressure from the points leader for the majority of the season, Braden Bennett, Didn't seem to matter to Sambér. Didn't seem to phase him on the final run. Put in a perfect 50, 60 lap stint there. I know he led the final 60 laps, so I think it was around we went back to him at the round 50 to go, but he did take the lead under caution, of course, as Diego blew up. But my point still stands. He led the most laps again. I think he's led 189 laps this season, which is insane, considering he is obviously the number 2 driver at Snoots. But this is why he has been such a hot name on the open market, because we knew it was only a matter of time before Sambér won. It was not a matter of if, it was just going to be a matter of when. And, you know, they said the same things about Ross Jackson and Colin Ward this season. Not a matter of if, just a matter of when. And Sambér has more than proven, especially on Fridays. We've seen it time and time again on Fridays. That's why he's called Mr. Friday. He puts it inside the top 5 in qualifying. The problem was, you know, transitioning that pace to Saturday and getting a good result in the race. And, you know, to Sambér's credit, he's had a lot of bad luck. Been an up and down season. He's had 4 DNFs on the campaign. He's, you know, obviously figuring out what it's like to race the big boys. But, you know, even it's weird to say maturation for a guy who's 31 years old in his 5th season at the Cup Series, but he is learning to race guys like Brady Bennett and Todd Kidd and the like, you know, because I mean, he started his career at Flores Motorsports, you know, the first 3 years trying to build that team from the ground up, racing the back markers, and you know, got this opportunity at Snoots. Last year was okay, I guess, you know, for his standards. I mean, he did beat out Bryn Renner 12th in points, you know, not terrible, not anything special either. But this year he has, you know, as Snoots has improved, and Greg Healy looked to be a championship contender early in the season before the Michigan doubleheader, and now obviously this DNF. We'll talk about that accident as well more briefly in depth. But yeah, he's stepped up his game, and this is why he's got offers, you know, 10 million plus per year from Michael White Racing and Revolution Racing. You know, they see him, and you know that you're at least getting a high floor. He probably doesn't have a high ceiling, to be honest with you. He's not 18 years old, 19 years old. He's not Caden Dunham. He's not Tony Doval II. He's not Gunnar Thorson. But sometimes in the Cup Series, you just need that high floor guy, especially someone like Revolution Racing. He's probably the perfect candidate for their team. You know, they need that Ross Jackson type with the chip on his shoulder. Sambér has more than proven himself with the Snoots contract, more than proven the doubters wrong, more than proven Jared Ayers wrong, a guy who's talked a lot of crap about Sambér, but look at where Ayers was on Saturday. 19th, 3 laps down in Michael White Racing equipment. And that might very well be the ride that Sambér ends up taking, which would be awfully ironic if so. But yeah, so just you got to be happy for Sambér. Like I said, it's a rare underdog story in the sport, with all these team owners going, you know, just gaga over these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And I understand why they are, because when they hit, they hit. You know, you can get a generational talent out of that to really carry your organization. But it is also nice on the other side of the spectrum to see a guy like Sambér, who's had to grind his way to the top, you know, for years before even reaching the ASCA and getting the attention of Michael White Racing, originally down in the Craftsman Series. Gets the call at Flores Motorsports, proves himself for 3 years, but gets booted out rather unfairly, I think it's safe to say, looking back, for Tommy Woods. But he lands on his feet at Snoots Enterprises, gets that prove-it contract, and now he's about to parlay it into a big payday. So, yeah, definitely can't wait to see where he ends up, probably within the next couple weeks or so. And like I said, just an awesome story for the Las Vegas native to finally score his first win in his 93rd start. So let's talk Cup Series championship. 8 points, 6 races to go, 3 drivers. Braden Bennett, Colin Ward, Bryn Renner. And man, I said after last week, I think that I had the most confidence in Bryn Renner taking this championship. But after practice on Thursday, my opinion drastically changed. That was a really inexcusable accident by Renner. And I get it, it's a mistake. But in a title fight, especially in a Cup Series title fight, when you're making $13 million a year, they don't pay you to make mistakes. And the thing is, he's the veteran driver. He's got these young guys he's battling in their second and third years. They're not making those same mistakes. Sure, Bennett and Ward have had their moments this year. Bennett, you can look at West Virginia as his really kind of big moment where he really screwed the pooch there. And Ward, I don't think it's safe to say he put a foot wrong. I think you could look at his Windows 300 performance and say that was the most inexcusable moment of his season. But I mean, even still, Braden Bennett just finished 16th last week. Ward really has not put a foot wrong, other than, I guess you could say, the Subway Grand Prix very early in the season. But hey, that might come back to haunt him. He might need that win come Belltown. Other than that, these two guys, we haven't really seen them crack under pressure. And that was very early in the season. They've learned from their mistakes. They're still young guys, 24, 25 years old. Renard, on the other hand, he's 34. He's won 10 races. He's won multiple 300s. Like, you cannot be dropping it in practice and basically throwing away your entire weekend before it gets started. And it cost him the points lead. He entered the day as the points leader. He left Denver, now 8 points down, in third place. And we had to a short track in San Diego where he traditionally has not run very well. Colin Ward, it's tough to really say because I think he DNF'd like 20 laps into this race last year. So I don't know what to expect out of Colin Ward here. But Braden Bennett, we know, is damn good at these short tracks. I think he's won 3 out of the last 6. And his worst finish over that span is like a 3rd or something crazy. But he is who everyone's ready to crown the new king of short tracks. So this could be another statement weekend for Braden Bennett upcoming. Very well could be. So, it's going to be up to Colin Ward and Bryn Renner to really bring the heat to San Diego to wrap up this West Coast swing, because otherwise they could find themselves quickly in a double-digit hole. And I trust Ward, honestly, much more than I trust Bryn Renner, because in the one race that Ward finished at San Diego, he only lost by inches, literal inches, to Graham Darty. That, remember, back in 2023, that was the race Darty became the youngest winner in ASCA history at just 17 years of age. Don't sleep on Graham Darty. We'll get into that more, but don't sleep on this kid. I know he has lit the world on fire his rookie season, but again, he's only 20 years old. Give him time. Give him room to grow and develop, because he will. But as for Colin Ward, the one race he's finished here, he nearly won it. His other 3 starts here, DNF, and DNF. 2022, 2024, 2025. So you look at that track record, it's quite spotty. I look at Bennett's track record here. He just won pole a year ago. He finished top 5. Bennett, obviously, at the short tracks, that seems to be his big advantage over these guys. And with no more road courses on the schedule, man, he's got an opportunity to build up a really solid cushion heading into Ajax Super Speedway, which is, we all know, even with the analytics, that's going to be a crapshoot. So, yeah, title fight's getting good. Like I said, 6 races to go, and we'll definitely talk more about San Diego later on in the episode. But right now, man, I'd say advantage Braden Bennett, especially coming off a runner-up finish, even after some of the adversity he had to deal with at Denver. Um, but from the positive, let's get a little negative here. Orkedi Bros Racing. Man, I am speechless. I don't think I've ever seen this organization this lost, at least in my time covering this sport. I don't think they've ever been this lost in the modern era. Maybe not this lost since 2014, because they've had slow starts to the season before. I look at 2017, I look at 2020, where they were slow to get going. They were winless. We were concerned and all this other stuff. I think 2022 is another really good example. Slow to get going. Diego's had slow starts to the season before, but this is where Diego generally turns up the wick and he gets it going. He gets it turned around. He gets on his ridiculous form. And when Diego Orkedi is in form and when he's performing, he's the most dangerous driver on the grid, for good and for bad. Yeah, when he's in form, he's unstoppable. I think that's quite obvious. His track record bears that out. That's why he's a 4-time champion. But this year, they just haven't clicked. And you can't blame it on their young guys. Like, let's break it down. Let's break down everything that happened to them in this race. So they qualified okay, first, 7th, 16th, not bad. Schmidt, of course, putting it on pole. That was huge in terms of building momentum for Ford. But you look at the actual race itself, Graham Darty, like I said, he did nothing wrong again in this situation. Marcus Edwards just absolutely sent it in the corner. I don't know what the heck he was thinking right there. But he locks up his right front, sends it in the corner, plows it in the back of Darty, sends him into Greg Healy. That was that. Darty's race over with. He was running inside the top 5. He was fastest in opening practice. One of the fastest cars on track. I'm not going to say he would have had a shot at the win, but he could have easily have had a career day. That's taken away from him, 44 laps into the race. Then we get to Diego. Man, actually, first, let's start with Carson Schmidt, because soon after his race went into shambles as well, because he had a pit penalty. He was leading the race comfortably, that opening stint, come down pit road, it gets a tire violation. He gets sent to the rear, and he does nothing the rest of the race. I don't even think he broke back into the top 10. And then, obviously, he had the same engine issues that Diego Orkedi did. Diego really, for the first 100, 18 laps, he looked like his vintage self out there. He really did. He made it 3 wide on the initial start, cut underneath Cameron Atwood, picking up spots left and right. You look at when we went back to green, I think he was 3rd, and he started the race 16. So he picked up a bunch of spots, 13 spots in the first 50 or so laps. That's insane. And then obviously very quickly took the lead from Todd Kidd. Shades of 2025 right there. And no love lost between them either, because Diego gave the reigning champion the bumper. So he definitely remembers the way things were last season. Definitely not forgetting that anytime soon. And it looked as if Diego was just going to dominate, drive off into the sunset. We didn't even hear anything about any engine issues, any sputtering, nothing like that over the radio. And then all of a sudden, boom, it grenades, blows up on the front stretch, crossing the stripe, leading another lap. And that was that. That was his race. And then obviously they bring Carson Schmidt down because they're seeing very similar issues to the ones Diego had on his engine tracing. And that was that for him too. So they all DNF'd, 2 of them having engine issues. And Graham Darty also just blew up in the Winners 300 a couple weeks ago. So clearly, let's start with the good news for them. The good news is they had pace. They were clearly fast. All three of them showed speed that they have not had in the turbo hybrid era with these new regulations so far. The bad news, that pace is extremely unreliable. And now you look at them taking Ken Bernanke out of that executive role overseeing the engine department and putting him on the pit box for Diego. Look at what happened the first race. All the engines go boom. And yeah, so that's extremely concerning. Like, is this going to be a trend? Can they fix this before San Diego? Like, yeah, you had pace, but if you can't finish the race, does that really matter? So, there's positives and negatives to take away from this race. I think that at this point, they just need to accept that it's a lost season for all of them. None of them are going to win the championship. I don't think, you kind of expected Schmidt to be up there. Obviously, you expected Diego to be up there. You didn't expect Dory to be up there. But at this point, none of them are going to win the title. Accept defeat, and just experiment with these new regs. Try to find pace. Try to win some races. Just go all in for wins the rest of the campaign and prep for a title run in 2027. I think that's really all they can do. They really need to focus on getting Carson Schmidt locked up long term because they haven't even, pursued long-term extension talks with him, which is odd considering his contract is up at the end of 2027. And yeah, so they need to get him locked down long-term. Just focus on next season. Admit that this season is lost. It's over. You're not winning the championship, which is a failure for Orkedi Bros Racing, but it's over. Just admit defeat and prep for next year. Try some new stuff out. That's all you really can do at this point. But definitely, if you're an Orkedi Bros Racing fan, I can bet that Saturday was certainly a heartbreak for you, to say the least. But let's talk Craftsman Series and let's talk more Ford. They were a big topic of discussion, as they always tend to be at Denver, even though it was a Chevrolet sweep. We're talking all about how dominant Ford's been here in the past, and yet the bow ties end up sweeping again for the second straight week now. So, and a big part of that was, more infighting at the Ford development program. We saw this earlier in the season between Graham Doherty and Ian Adonde, and now we're seeing it again between Caden Dunham and Doug Bowden. And in case you missed it, Caden Dunham, when he signed the contract with CJ Barrymore Racing, of course he had to throw in a sneak diss to Zico Bowden Motorsports. Completely unnecessary, extremely immature on his part, calling them a poverty organization. And I get it. They are a poverty organization. Let's be real. But they just offered you a $40 million contract. Did you really need to say that? I think that could have just been left unsaid. And he clearly knows now he should have handled that better. Doug Bowden, who just signed a 6-year contract extension there. That's his father's team. Of course, he's going to stick up for his dad. He took offense to that. And he sneak dissed Dunham on Twitter on Thursday prior to the race getting going. And you could tell when he was getting to the 98 in the closing laps on Friday, he was ready to get his elbows out, let's say the least. And coming to the white flag lap, he puts Dunham in the wall, cost them both positions because Braden Bennett ended up getting by them both while they were both scrapping between each other. So they both ended up finishing third and fourth, Bowden third, Dunham fourth. And that's 2 critical points lost for Caden Dunham because he went from having likely a 2-point lead on Gunnar Thorson, who had one of his worst performances of the season, was really irrelevant all day, finished 10th, which is shocking for the points leader who came into Denver having won 2 of the last 3 races, was a total non-factor all day. But yeah, Dunham could not capitalize because he got into this feud with Bowden and he ended up dropping those 2 positions. And he went from having a 2-point lead to now he's tied exiting Denver. That's not good. You're going to need those points at the end of the season. Look at the Cup championship last season, decided by a tiebreaker. That's where it seems like this Craftsman Series championship is heading, especially with how physical we're seeing Thorson and Dunham race each other. It's like you're going to need those points. And yeah, so that was an extremely immature decision on Dunham's part to sneak this. I think it was immature on Bowden's part to retaliate on track. I think they could have had a civil man-to-man discussion about it. Instead, they handled it that way. I'm sure the Ford development program is going to be super happy. The fabrication department for sure is going to be extremely happy that two of their cars are torn up for no reason between teammates. And yeah, that was just uncalled for. And again, for this championship fight, Bowden's going to be in a few more of these races before the end of the year. Caden Dunham he's going to throw away this championship off the track. He's making way too many enemies. Kurtz Barrymore gave him the bumper to get the race lead. He's pissed off at him. Nick Painter's not happy with him. Doug Bowden's not happy with him. Cameron Atwood's not happy with him. These are all guys he's going to be racing for the next 10 to 15 years, by the way, at the Cup level. So it's not like he's going to be escaping these rivalries when he leaves Craftsman. No, he's going to be racing these guys on a weekly basis here very soon. So it's only going to get worse for him next year. Like I said, Dunham has all the potential in the world, but again, I don't think he understands the damage he's doing to his career. Just being as brash, bold, and reckless as he is. Like he's gonna hope that his daddy has rich pockets, as Diego's did, to bail him out of these situations, because otherwise, man, it's gonna be a long Cup career for him, to say the least. But let's touch back on the bright side here. Speaking of a Craftsman Series rookie competing for a championship, Snoots Enterprises just revealed that Matt Chamberlain will be replacing Lucas Sambér in the number 8 for next season at the Cup Series level. And this one kind of came out of left field, but I think that it makes sense. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what Snoots' long-term philosophy here is, but this is a team that lost out on the Ryan Dixon sweepstakes. They lost out on the Jared Ayers sweepstakes. They lost out, obviously, on the Sambér sweepstakes. They were outbid in all three of those cases because, let's face it, this is a team that's completely built around supporting Greg Healy. He just signed a massive $48 billion extension. He's going to be here basically through the end of the decade. So they're built around supporting their franchise guy, their championship winning driver, and trying to get him another one. So any driver that steps in here is going to have to take a number 2 role. It's like a Formula One team. And the interesting thing about Chamberlain is he's on the older side. He's going to be 24 next season. But you see in the Craftsman Series, he's proven that he's solid. He's not great. I don't think he has the super high ceiling. People are trying to call him the next Colin Ward. I don't see that at all. Ward had already won 3 races, led a bunch of laps. Like, you could tell the second Colin Ward stepped in that Ronnie Woods Motorsports car, and in the season opener, Colin Ward proved he was built different. Chamberlain has not done that yet. He hasn't won a pole. He hasn't led a lap. He hasn't won a race. He's been up there in contention. He's been consistent. But again, you're also 23 years old racing against a bunch of teenagers. Like, you should be consistent. He's much more mentally mature than a Caden Dunham. And you could argue than any of the team's prospects in a Travis Wolf or a Calvin Terrier III. So is this a stopgap, or are they planning to keep him long term? They did sign him to a 2-year deal. worth only $4 million a season. So they were kind of able to lowball him, offer him the same Sambér kind of prove-it contract. It's interesting. It's an interesting hire. I don't think I hate it, honestly. I think that he's going to be solid at the cup level. I think he's another one of these guys with an extremely high floor, similar to that of Sambér, because he is older, 24 years of age. From that dirt racing background, he's been consistent at the Craftsman level this season. He can run up there with the cup guys and with the big boys. Just can't consistently beat them on a weekly basis. So it's not like they're hiring some, mid Craftsman regular like a Tico Bowden would do, like a Dustin Adams or something like that. I don't hate it. I don't know what their long-term outlook is going to be with Chamberlain in that car, but I don't hate the hire because, again, you're not looking for potential. You just want a solid number 2 option who can help build the team for Greg Healy to chase another championship. I think that within the next 3 to 4 years, though, as Healy kind of exits his prime, you're going to want probably a number 2 option with boom or bust potential. But for now, while you still got those guys developing at the Craftsman level, I think Chamberlain is a solid hire. And I like that Snoots went outside the box by picking him up instead of going for a proven veteran who teams don't seem to want anymore, and like a Dixon or an Ayers, who would basically just kind of be a retread. I like the direction they're going, and I think that Chamberlain's going to be solid in the Cup Series next season. Heck, he might even win Rookie of the Year, to be honest with you. I think he's a dark horse for that award. Everyone's wanting to crown Del Valle, Thorson, or Dunham, but I think Chamberlain, mentally mature than all of those guys. I think he could very easily get it done. But let's preview the upcoming week of short track action in the ASCA across the country. Like I said, Craftsman Series back down in Orlando, the Cup Series wrapping up their West Coast swing in San Diego. So yeah, let's discuss it. It's a standalone weekend for the Craftsman Series, their second standalone event of the campaign, their first fully standalone event, like completely on it at a different track than the Cup level. So we'll get to see Ronnie Woods and Tico Bowden back in the booth. That's going to be awfully fun to see them come out of retirement for this race weekend. For that Craftsman race. Can't wait to see that, hear them back in the booth again. But yeah, apologize for the email notifications. Don't know why everyone's sending emails. Of course, when I tried to record the podcast, but that's neither here nor there. For the Craftsman Series, you're going to see Andy Hayward Jr., Nicolette Armstrong, Tyler Harrow, and Theo Russell back behind the wheel instead of your usual Cup guys. So I think that it lends itself to a major opportunity for Gunnar Thorson or Caden Dunham to break out of this tie once again and make a championship statement. Remember the last time we were here, Dunham hit everything but the hot dog stand. Again, this is his home race. Once again, racing in Florida. He's from the St. Petersburg area. Pressure is certainly going to be on him to perform. Technically, it's a home race for Thorson as well, being from Tennessee. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this return trip goes. And I definitely don't think that Dunham's going to be able to get away with what he pulled last time, especially considering the high groove is going to be an option. It wasn't an option under the lights because of the grip level, but now that this race is going to be run during the day, the track's going to be much more slick. There's going to be a lot more areas for these guys to experiment to find pace. High groove is going to be an option, so keep an eye on that as well. As for my pick, I'm going to be honest. I think I trust Caden Dunham here more. Thorson was really a non-factor in this race earlier in the campaign. Matt Chamberlain, I think, also is going to be a dark horse. Now he's the one riding the wave of the momentum, and it seems like the guy who gets the Cup right on Tuesday, wins the pole on Friday, and has a pretty solid weekend. So I think Chamberlain is going to be that dude. I think I think if Tony Nobel II could ever finish a short track race, I think he's going to be a threat as well. Problem is he never gets to finish these races. He did finish second here as a 17-year-old. I'd like to see him make it the full 125 laps to see what he could do. Yeah, so I think I got Caden Dunham, though, to make the championship statement. And on the Cup side of things, like I said, I think Braden Bennett is clearly the heavy favorite. Now, in terms of not looking at the championship, I think that Randall Woods making his final trip to San Diego. He was the 2021 winner here. I think Greg Healy trying to bounce back after a rough string of races. I get his title bid's basically over at this point, but Healy, I think, is an option. Look no further than the defending winner, Todd Kidd. Still winless this season. Did just lead 23 laps. I think that he's starting to heat up. He's fourth in points. Keep an eye on him. He could very well go back to back if, our three main title protagonists falter here in these closing races. He's lurking. I like the trajectory the 9 team is on. It seems like they're getting hot at the right time, and they might just steal this championship after being as low as last in points early in the season. That would be crazy if Todd Kidd could pull that one off. Everyone was so quick to call him Todd Mid, and dunk on him. And now what if he comes back and wins the championship? That'd be something. But yeah, so I think my picks are going to be Caden Dunham and Braden Bennett for this week. Going to be a fun weekend of cross-country short track action. Critical weekend in both championships. I definitely cannot wait for it. I know you guys can't wait for it. And yeah, I'm going to see you to recap all the action in Orlando and San Diego in a week's time.